Since we left you yesterday, 4 Republicans signed Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition on a 3-year extension of the Obamacare subsidies, putting it over the finish line. There's no other way to explain it but an abject disaster for the Republican leadership.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Let's get in the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number 1, Johnson, Jeffries, and the mods. Number 2, the January spending sprint takes shape. And number 3, House Dems weigh a new discharge petition strategy. All right, Jake, let's get into it. It has been a wild week in Congress, to say the least, but in particular for the House. Catch us up on what is happening between the Republicans. You've got Speaker Mike Johnson and the moderates going their own way. You've got Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, all of a sudden in the mix in a way with a 3-seat majority of the House. Things are certainly interesting, to say the least.
Since we left you yesterday, not you, but this podcast, 4 Republicans signed Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition on a 3-year extension of the Obamacare subsidies, putting it over the finish line. That's Brian Fitzpatrick, Ryan McKenzie, and Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania. No relation to John Bresnahan. No relation that we know of. I haven't checked the entire family tree, but I'm told no relation. And Mike Lawler, who will be our guest on Flyout Day today. So what a
very newsy flyout day. Looking forward to it.
Thank you to Haley Talbot, excuse me, for locking that down, and we're excited for that. They signed a petition, the 3-year subsidy petition, and that will come to a vote in, most likely, unless something happens today. The speaker could bring it up on his own. I don't think he's going to do that in January. Now, could he do that? Sure, but I don't think he's going to do that. I've been told he's not going to do that. We kind of forecasted that was likely to happen in yesterday's edition. There's no other way to explain it but an abject disaster for the Republican leadership. Not only, Anna, are they signing a discharge petition, which is a middle finger to the leadership to begin with, right? This is the 3rd discharge petition, by the way, that has reached 218.
Which is really the stunning, of all of it.
We've been thinking about how to quantify this in historical terms. It's difficult because discharge petitions are not tracked. We're not tracked in the same way back in the day that they are now. But I cannot remember any Congress that I've covered that has had 3 discharge petitions that have been successful. I don't know that there's ever been that.
It's really more of a threat, right? I mean, I feel like historically it was used as a way for upset members to try to push their leadership to do something. I mean, and the idea, particularly in the Pelosi era, was, trying to figure out, it wasn't that Johnson's the first speaker, right, that's dealt with factions of their caucus or their conference that doesn't like what they're doing or their leadership. But this is the first time, we're dealing with, obviously a very small majority, but still, it's no longer just the threat, which was the big thing for a long time, and then leadership had to deal with it or not deal with it. Now it's like they're actually coming and votes are being taken.
Yes, it's a cry for help, and it's a cry against the leadership, that the leadership is not listening to the majority of the House. It's very unusual. But so not only did they sign this discharge petition, this is a discharge petition that is by the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who will be trying to defeat Fitzpatrick, McKenzie, Bresnahan, and Lawler. That is just such a middle finger to Johnson. And, the leadership is supposed to protect members from bad votes, right? Hard votes. Mm-hmm. This is a bad vote for the House Republican Conference. It just is. I mean,
the attack ad writes itself, Jake.
Yeah. Congressman X voted against keeping your healthcare low. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a great thing for me. Let's just reiterate. Johnson is against the subsidies. Most House Republicans are against the subsidies. We said this during the shutdown. They are against them, but it's different to have a vote. So Johnson argues, and Scalise and the rest of the leaders, Steve Scalise, the rest of the leadership argue, they tried to avoid this, right? They tried to craft a deal, an amendment that would have a pay for, that would turn off the discharge petitions, and would have Hyde Amendment protections. Hyde Amendment is the language that says government money can't be spent on abortion or abortion services. And the moderates were not interested in that. Well, duh. I don't know why they would ever do that. It doesn't make any sense. So listen, there's another dynamic here, which is the moderates have been like a doormat all Congress, right? They have been forced to vote on conservative policy that they didn't want to vote on for all of 2025, Anna, all of
Mm-hmm.
2025. And they're finally having a spine here.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryce and I keep talking about this, and we were talking a little bit with the leadership about this yesterday, because I think the leadership is trying to figure out, the Republican leadership is trying to figure out how not we, because it's not us, how Congress has gotten to this place, right? Because it's a lot that's going on, and it's a lot of emotions and a lot of frayed nerves and a lot of anger. And Bryce and I just think, based on talking to the zillion people that we talk to every day, that people returned from the shutdown where the House was out for 54 days, nearly 2 months, right? 7 weeks, as free agents looking to protect themselves, right? The president's numbers are down. Johnson, who's tied to the president for reasons that are I completely understand them, right? He has to tie himself to the president. He agrees with his agenda. But I just think that in that scenario, and this is a theory that Brez developed, kind of, is that like Johnson really ebbs and flows now with the president, right?
Mm-hmm.
The president's numbers go down. Johnson
And the
is less.
president isn't paying attention to Congress, Jake. Full
No.
stop. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
saying this for the last couple weeks, banging on this concept, right? The idea that, like, without Trump pushing an agenda on Capitol Hill, Republicans who have been in lockstep, who've looked to the president for leadership, are adrift, right? I mean, there is no proactive big legislative agenda post one big beautiful bill, and they're frustrated and they look to their own reelection chances, right? The moderates doing this is only surprising in so much as, to your point, that they, for this past Congress and even Congresses before this, right, they always fold, right? That was the, they were kind of bang their chest.
KTF, as we've said, known to fold. Yep.
Right. I mean, and now they aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what could Johnson have done differently? There's an argument to be made, and I don't know that he could have done anything differently. I get the pickle that he's in. I know that it's really hard to have a 3-seat majority. I get all of that. But, these are the majority makers, Anna. Like, the Freedom Caucus is not majority makers. The RSC is not majority makers. The right of the conference is not majority makers. I find it very difficult to see a scenario in which Brian Fitzpatrick, Ryan McKenzie, Rob Bresnahan, and Mike Lawler lose and Johnson is the speaker. So, yes, it's a small group. I get that. It's a very small group. That said, it's a critical group. It's a critical group, Anna, and that's where I think they got this. Not that they got it wrong, but you'd have to, at this point, trend toward giving them more deference rather than, in my estimation, rather than less deference.
And are we just on the pathway, Jake, towards several more we're going to talk about this later, but like, is the discharge petition going to be the way that, like, not only Democrats, but now, moderate Republicans saying, like, these are the things we want to take up?
Yeah, I'll save my thoughts on that for when we talk about it, because you're right. You're absolutely right. And I'll add one more thing here. Republicans are apt to say Obamacare was a Democratic policy. The subsidies are a Democratic policy. And I've had this conversation with a bunch of people in leadership over the last couple of days. And they're like, well, they broke healthcare, and why is it our problem to fix it? Well, when you become the majority party, you can't just wash your hands of any legislation that Democrats passed and say, well, that's them. Like, I didn't ask them to win the majority. I didn't ask Mike Johnson to become speaker. Like, you have a responsibility. And again, if you want to make changes to Obamacare, you want to do other things, fine, I get that. But like, you can't just wash your hands of the policy and say, well, Democrats passed this one, so we have no culpability here. We're going to blame it all on Democrats, and that's that. I just don't think that really works. We're 15. Obamacare's not like 2 years ago. This is a 15-year-old program, right?
The difference between being the majority and the minority. The minority, you get to rail against stuff, and the majority is like, you got to fix stuff, right? That's the name of the game. So we'll have to see if they figure out, and kind of this mess portends that if healthcare is, as Speaker Mike Johnson has said, going to be the biggest thing they're going to take on in the first 6 months of 2026, it's going to be a messy road ahead. All right, Jake, let's go on to the number 2 story of the morning. Really interesting stuff here. Democrats who obviously pushed for and ended up into a government shutdown earlier this year, now say that January is not the time for a shutdown, and they're not looking to kind of have some high stakes shutdown on that January 30th funding deadline. Interesting how the political narrative and stakes have changed here.
Winds have shifted. Yeah, we had an interview, not me, but our team had an interview with Chuck Schumer yesterday in the Capitol, and he telegraphed a very different posture for his party compared to the last funding deadline. Listen, there probably won't be an Obamacare deal by January 30th, I don't think. I mean, or let's just say it's certainly possible that there won't be an Obamacare deal. And Schumer's basically saying no. Like, we're not going to shut down the government over that. By the way, it doesn't guarantee at all that there's not going to be a group of Democrats that don't try to leverage that January 30th deadline for Obamacare or something else, or who the hell knows what could happen between now and January 30th, whether it's Venezuela or whatever it could be, terror. I mean, just
but
who
a
knows?
very different posture by the Democratic leadership this time around.
Very different posture. We'll have more on the Schumer interview in tomorrow morning's edition. And I just want to say this here. I mean, it's December 18th. The House and the Senate are both leaving today, right? They are leaving today for the rest of the year. The House has not even pretended to take up any funding bills in December. I mean, Congress institutionally, not the House, Senate, Republicans, and Democrats, have not passed 9 of the 12 appropriations bills.
The Senate's pretty close, though. I mean, they've been working pretty hard on this. I mean, this has been their biggest focus.
They've been working behind the scenes. They've not had these things on the floor. I mean, they are far away from figuring out the January deadline, and it's going to creep up on you. Not on you. I mean,
I'm ready. It's marked on my calendar, January 30th. I'm ready.
You'll know it's coming, but it's creeping up on them. And I just think that's a big failure in my view.
All right, let's move to the number 3 story of the morning. House Democrats are waging a new discharge petition strategy. House Democrats, with the backing of their leadership, are preparing to file a discharge petition on a new stock trading ban. The petition is meant to compete directly with Representative Anna Paulina Luna, the Republican of Florida's, which has been accruing signatures. That petition currently has 74 backers, including 59 Democrats. Jake, interestingly, though, now Democrats seeing some wins on the discharge petition, right? The winds are changing in the House, and they are changing their strategy here, and they want to have their own petition. They're going to try to jam Speaker Mike Johnson as much as absolutely possible, and this is the first instance of that.
Yeah, this is an interesting shift, because this is like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, which is discharge petitions are no longer just messaging exercises. Like what we've seen this Congress in the last, 12 months or 10 months, 11 months, is that discharge petitions are a live fire exercise, so to speak, to use a bad metaphor. They are a live exercise. You could legislate through discharge petitions when you just need to get the entire minority party and 4 Republicans, you can make law through discharge petitions. This all came out of Seth Magaziner, who had a new stock banning discharge petition, new bill, and said the leadership basically put him up to it. And he didn't say basically, that's what he told Brez and I yesterday. The leadership put him up to it because the Anna Paulina Luna version, which does have Democratic signatures, that discharge petition, does not include the administration. Magaziner wanted an alternative, and it seems like Democratic leadership wanted a place for Dems to land.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you know that you could create law through a discharge petition, you treat it differently. You're careful. You put, I just find it. I think this Magaziner thing probably won't work. It might push off people from signing Luna, but I don't think that you're going to get 218 on Magaziner. I just don't. But it's very interesting. It's a very interesting strategy.
And something to watch going into 2026, because this is probably, this is just a test case, a trial balloon for them to think, okay, how else can we think differently here when all of a sudden these, to your point, can have potential success?
How else could we control the House floor from the minority? Because that's what they're doing, Anna. Johnson, in many respects, has lost control of the House floor. I mean, when you have 3 discharge petitions that are live, I mean, the 3 being Epstein files, which passed, Jared Golden's discharge petition, on collective bargaining, overturning a Trump executive order on executive collective bargaining for the Pentagon, I believe it was, for federal employees. And third, you have the Obamacare thing. I mean, you're now creating big bills. You're doing big things with discharges.
We are going to be watching it very closely. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, please share it on social media, tell your friends, and sign up for our free morning newsletter by going to punchbowl.news. We have our annual year-end Canvas survey special edition. It's a year-end report looking at what our insiders tracked, where they were right, what happened throughout the past year. That's going to be coming out later this morning, and you need to be on our AM list in order to get that. Look for that in your inboxes around 10 a.m. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We appreciate it. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.